If you brought your Bibles this morning, we will absolutely be spending some time learning from God's Word, and we will be in Matthew chapter 16. Would love for you guys to join me there, but something that's been just very evident as we've been praying, and if you don't know the whole story, there's a long backstory to what's happening this morning, but for whatever brought you here, I have no idea. It could be that you were excited, and that's what brought you here. It could be that you were invited, and that's what brought you here. It could be that you're here for a day to support and going back to your home fellowship. I have no clue. But there are many things that can draw people together, but only Jesus can keep them together. Amen. We can all come and go and do a lot of things together, but it is Christ truly who offers eternity and forgiveness and hope. And so the Bible tells us how to do everything in our lives, and so that's what we're going to set out to accomplish as a fellowship of Calvary Chapel Star. In Psalms 127, verse 1, it says, "Unless the Lord builds the house, they who labor would labor in vain if it wasn't the Lord." And then on top of that, then how do we begin something? Well, that's answered also in 1 Corinthians. It says, no foundation can be laid except that which has already been laid, which is Jesus Christ. And so this morning we will look at the foundation of our lives, the foundation of this church, and that is Jesus. So we'll be in Matthew chapter 16. If you would join me, and we'll pray, read, and learn. But God, we rejoice in your goodness, in your favor, in your patience, and in your mercy. And Lord, in the same way that you so wonderfully walked the disciples to that fuller knowledge of who you are, Lord, remind us today, teach us today, lead us through your word. In Jesus' name. We all said, Amen. Amen. Matthew chapter 16, starting in verse 13. When Jesus came into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" So they said, "Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Jesus said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered and said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus answered and said to him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he commanded his disciples that they should tell no one that he was Jesus, the Christ. I don't know if you've ever been on a road trip. I'm imagining most, if not all, have. But I'm always amazed at the conversations that a long journey can lead to. It's the sightseeing, it's the experiences. Those are fun, but the older I'm getting, the more I'm appreciating the conversations that happen in the car. And this was one of many road trips, though they would have been on foot, Jesus took with the disciples. Getting into the area of Caesarea Philippi, they are a long way from Jerusalem, still over 20 miles away from the Sea of Galilee. They are away from everything that would have been familiar or Jewish by culture, and into now something altogether different. And Jesus initiates this conversation. He says, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" Now, if you and I walk around saying, "Hey, what do they think of me?" That's a little bit arrogant, a little self-centered, a little bit narcissistic, but that's not what's happening. This is not a moment where Jesus is, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. He's not interested in what's popular opinion. He's not taking a poll. He is simply beginning to lead them toward the heart of what Jesus wanted them to know. There is something very important that we can't pass over. When he says, "Who do they say, who do the sons of men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" He gives himself this phrase, and outside of when Stephen uses the phrase, "the Son of Man," referring to Jesus, Jesus is the only one who self-titles him the Son of Man. And it carries with it at least two notable things. It's such a simple read, you can pass over it pretty quickly, but it is worth a few moments of our time to say the least. 88 times Jesus uses this in the New Testament to refer to himself, almost exclusively Jesus. And there's two things for today that phrase, that statement, who did they say that I, the Son of Man, am, carry with it. One is an extremely humble posture. Jesus is taking this posture of great humility. The other is the fact that he is the fulfillment of prophecy. That there is this posture of humility, but all the grandeur of who he was as he was actively living out and fulfilling Old Testament prophecy right before their eyes. That posture of humility, the statement, the Son of Man, it means that he came like us. That's what the Bible teaches repeatedly over and over again. If you read through Philippians quickly, you find out that he humbled himself and came in the likeness of man, and to the extreme, even a servant, that he truly came. 1 John chapter 4, verse 1, there will be people that have all kinds of superstitious ideas about who Jesus was or beliefs about who Jesus was, but let's let God's word tell us who God is. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 1, he says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit," every idea, everything that floats around. "Do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." And Jesus is pointing out there's going to be a lot of things said. So what are they? Be familiar. Do you know the place in which you live? Nowhere in the Bible is a believer supposed to hide in the shadows. Well, didn't he just say at the end, don't tell anyone that I am Jesus the Christ? Yes, he did. But if you keep reading, there's a point where he says, everything I've told you in secret, climb up on the rooftops and shout it. Everything you've heard in darkness or in quiet, you now preach in the noonday sun. Let it be known. Amen. John chapter 1 in his gospel, verse 14, and the word, the spoken authority of God. When the word of God, the spoken authority of God, it became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Back in 1 John chapter 1, verse 1, I love this. That which was from the beginning. Meaning he was there. He was what initiated all of it. Which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled concerning the word of life. He's saying this is not something made up. I love other portions of the Bible that tell us that they did not follow cunningly devised fables. He says, we looked, we saw, we handled, we heard, we touched. John wrote this. John's the one who leaned on Jesus at the Last Supper and heard the heartbeat. This wasn't an idea. It was a reality. He says, who do they say that I, the Son of Man, am? Not a Son of Man. Right? We're all a Son of Man. We all carry with us the human nature on both sides. But Jesus didn't say, who do they say that I am? Simply a Son of Man. He carried with it, he said, who do they say that I am? The Son of Man. He was giving them a beautiful little nudge in the right direction. I love the teachers that I had growing up who would give pop quizzes, but also kind of hint at the answers along the way. They weren't many of them. And Jesus, it's true, has very clear guidelines, very high expectations, but gives us very gentle leading along the way. It's like when a child's on an Easter egg hunt, and the parent goes over there kind of tapping their foot by the bench or pointing at the tree or whatever it may be. He wants to be found by you. God's not hiding in such a way where it's impossible and you give up. He's hiding in such a way where he can be found. All he asks is that whoever is willing to seek him with all their heart, he promises will be found by me. But the Son of Man, right? This is where you go from the nature of man to the prophecy of who Jesus was. Matthew chapter 9, verse 6, referring, same phrase, the Son of Man, is when he healed the paralytic. Remember the friends that dropped the guy down through the roof after tearing a hole in it? Could you imagine seeing drywall starting to fall from the ceiling right now because there's not enough room? I mean, what's happening? Did Jesus scold them, rebuke them, tell them to wait, kick them out? He looked at them. He wasn't a son of man. He was the Son of Man and had the power to heal the paralytic. In Mark 9, verse 28, Jesus says, the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. I am the one to give you rest. Look, I'm beginning to learn to love the river. I can't wait to see a lake. It's all kinds of good stuff around here. But if you came to Idaho to find rest, it will wear off. I promise. Work happens on Monday still, right? Rest will never be sustained unless it's sustained in Christ. He says, I have the power to heal. I, the Son of Man, am the Lord of the Sabbath. In Luke 19, he says, I, the Son of Man, have come to seek and to save that which was lost. No man can save you, but the Son of Man can. Mark 9:9, Jesus says, the Son of Man, referring to himself, have the power over death. And in John's Gospel, chapter 5, that the Son of Man, Jesus, has the power to even execute judgment when the time comes. This posture of great humility, but also the fulfillment of grand prophecy. Luke chapter 7 tells us, starting in verse 20, when the men had come to him, they said, John the Baptist has sent us to you, saying, are you the coming one, or do we look for another? See, their scriptures, all they had was the Old Testament, but in there they knew there's a description of what we're supposed to look for. And Jesus doesn't tell them what he wants them to know. He tells them Bible. If anyone ever tries to tell you something about God or God's will without using Bible, just know it's a lie. Amen. It has to be in his word or it is not true. Doesn't matter how passionate, eloquent, or big of a following they may have. If it's not in the Bible, it is not true, nor will it ever be. And so he points them back to the old. What did the Bible say the coming Savior would be like? What would he do? And there's this description. Jesus says, he answers them. They said, John sent us. Are you the one, or do we look for another? And that very hour, he cured many infirmities, afflictions, and evil spirits, and to many blind he gave sight. See, the Old Testament says that when the Savior comes, he will heal the blind, he'll take care of diseases, he'll even raise the dead, all kinds of descriptions given hundreds of years in advance. And then Jesus tells them, go and tell John the things that you have seen and heard, that the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers, they're cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he who is not offended because of me. Amen. It's amazing. Where's all that come from? Partially, Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. I was watching in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people and nation and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. Not only is Jesus saying, I am the one in Daniel, but a kingdom that shall not be destroyed. He's alluding, and we'll get to it in a moment. It says, I'm going to build something new. We're going to call it the church, and not even the gates of Hades will prevail against it. By calling himself the Son of Man, they knew what that meant. In Matthew's Gospel 26, he's beginning to tell them as he's now on trial. He's been brought before the Sanhedrin. He's been brought before all kinds of different authorities, and he says, I am the Son of Man. And it's for that reason that they begin to now make their way towards what will become the crucifixion. What were they so angry about? He says, are you mad because of all the good works? They say, no, but because you, being like us, have made yourself out to be God. They were right in front of God and didn't see him. I don't know about you guys. I lived my life for a long time right in front of God and didn't see him. All I knew his name. I believed in Christmas, I believed in Easter, and I believed that was enough, and I was dead wrong. You ever been in a courtroom? I got to sit on a jury one time. That's about the only time I've been in a courtroom. Praise the Lord. But maybe you were there watching, maybe you were a lawyer and you were defending or whatever it may have been. But there's a moment where the judge walks into the room and everyone are told by the bailiff, all rise for the honorable judge so-and-so. And it doesn't matter what role you play, you all stand. But not everyone cares to the same degree. The Bible tells us that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Amen. Every knee. They will all rise at the honorable judge Jesus in the end. Amen. Some of us excited, amen. Others terrified. But we will all bow. Make sure that when you see Jesus, it's the way you want to see him. It says, who do they say that I, the Son of Man, am? If he was really just a man, how did he do what he did? If he was really just a man, how did he even get the fame he got? Think about this and go study it on your own. It's true 100 times over. He never went to college, never got a degree, never wrote a book, never got married, never traveled far from his home. He never held political office. His dad was a construction worker, his mother a teenager, and he grew up in a little town in the middle of nowhere. Yet, more books have been written about him, songs have been sung to him, more movies have been produced about him, more paintings have been painted of him, more than anyone else in human history. Take any king, anyone of any notability, they don't even begin to compare to the global knowledge that Jesus has. How? Was he just a man? Not even close. The king now living with the peasants. Why did Jesus come? It's not that he didn't know us. It's that we didn't know him. And he bridged the gap. See, there was the question, and then there's this response. And rather quickly, they give this list of names. I love the group. I don't know who it was. Was it James and John and Peter throws it in there? Some say John the Baptist and other Elijah and Jeremiah and one of the prophets. There's all this stuff going on. So clearly people were aware of Jesus, but didn't know Jesus. You guys know about little Samuel in the Old Testament. He's been raised by his mom. He's serving in the temple, rather young, and the Lord calls him by name, Samuel, Samuel. And he runs over to his master's room and he says, "You called?" He says, "No, I didn't call you. Go back to bed." He goes back to bed. The second time, Samuel, he hears this prompting and he runs and, "I didn't call you." And he goes back. The third time, it happens again. He runs in and finally he's like, "Oh, I think the Lord's calling this kid." How can you be in church, in serving, actively participating in religious stuff and not know God? Samuel did. How many of us maybe have that testimony of going in and out of church for a long time, but not knowing God? How many of us have friends that go in and out of religious groups often, but don't know God? I don't know why, and I'm not claiming anything, but I believe with my whole heart, God's doing something very unique at this time. And I don't think it's here. I think it's anywhere that wants to proclaim the name of Jesus and teach the Bible accurately and worship him in their daily lives. God's going to do something in the years to come. Amen. Jesus initiates, though, a second question. I love he didn't even actually acknowledge their response. John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, one of the prophets. He didn't say, "Oh, okay, interesting." Wait, who thinks I'm John the Baptist? That's crazy. He just moves right on into where he wants to go. But who do you say that I am? You'd get a lot of answers. It might be a fun homework assignment to go and begin to ask our neighbors and friends, "Hey, who do you think God is? Or what do you think about Jesus?" Just ask. You don't have to go anywhere with it. Just ask them. Knock on the door of their heart. Who do you say that Jesus is? You get a variety of responses. Even your everyday atheist, right, as famous as Jesus is going to have to say he's at least a good man. There's enough religions out there that'll tell you he's a prophet of some kind. Others say he was such a good man that he became a god, and we can follow in suit and do the same thing. But if it's not in God's word, it is not God's truth. Jesus said of himself, right, when he said, "Oh, you better than Abraham, our father?" He says, "I'm telling you, before Abraham ever was, I was. I didn't become anything. I've always been. It's amazing. It's not about what our grandparents maybe believed, our friends, coworkers, classmates, parents, even pastors. He looks at Peter, James, John, all of them. Who do you say that I am? If you pause for a moment, just think. They've been walking with Jesus for a long time now. They've heard the Sermon on the Mount. They helped feed the 5,000 and saw the miracles. Peter has already walked on water at this point. They've experienced and seen a lot. But now the actual face and the voice of Jesus is looking at them and is asking, I need you to know, who am I? They were sitting under a tree or next to a stream, I don't know. Caesarea Philippi is a beautiful place. But this isn't a lecture any longer. It's something very real. And this Jesus, whom they now knew, isn't talking to the crowds. He's talking to them. Who do you say that I am? There was the question, there was this response, and now there's this moment of grand revelation. Simon Peter answered and said, You are the Christ, no longer the Son of Man. Look at your Bible. No longer the Son of Man, verse 16. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. It's amazing. The Christ and the Son of the living God, two sort of statements going on. It's pretty incredible. In John's Gospel, let me turn there. You can if you want to, chapter 10. Something's revealed that's incredible and worth hanging on to for the rest of our lives. John chapter 10, verse 30. I and my Father are one. There's this revelation beginning to take place. I and my Father are one. Then the Jews took up stones again, not the first time, to stone him. And Jesus answered them, Many good works I have shown you from my Father. For which of those works do you stone me? How does Jesus stay so calm, cool, and collected? They're holding rocks. They're angry. He's like, whoa, 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 guys. Which one of those miracles rub you wrong? Well, when you're the king, you got nothing to worry about. The Jews answered him, saying, For a good work we do not stone you, but for blasphemy, and because you, being a man, made yourself God. And Peter knew it. Peter said it. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. It's another phrase. So what does it mean, right? In our modern day terminology, the Son of God is one that we trip on all the time. It doesn't mean his place of origin. It means what he is made up of is divine and God itself. In the same way you might say to your kid, my blood flows through your veins. We're of the same nature. We're of the same thing. Jesus is saying, and what Peter's declaring, you and God are of the same thing. What you've been saying the whole time, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, for we are one. You didn't become this. I don't think you're this. It is actively right now being revealed to Peter that Jesus was much more than the Son of Man, but he was also God in flesh. 2 Peter 1:16, for we have not followed cunningly devised fables, which we made known unto you the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but were eyewitnesses of his majesty. It's amazing. It says, Simon, you are a blessed man. Why, did he hit the lotto? Nope. Did he reel in a whole bunch of fish that day? No, that's going to happen later. Why is he so blessed? Because he had something that would be true for all of eternity. You can make $1 million and lose it. You can get a bunch of fish and watch them rot. But once you know Jesus, you are sealed for all of eternity. Blessed, favored by God in a way that causes, this is awesome. When God blesses, and don't you know this to be true? When God does something in your heart, it doesn't matter if your house is on fire. If God's doing something in your heart, you're like, I'm good. Even this morning, you woke up like, it's raining. Like, okay. Like, what are you going to do? Nothing. Roll with it. Why? Because God's good. Amen. He knows these things in advance. He's got it all figured out. He says, I have planned this from beginning. Just walk in the good things I have put before you. Peter, you are blessed, favored by God in a way that causes joy and contentment to settle upon your soul. Again, you're not going to find it in the river or by a lake or on top of a mountain. Go do it all. Trust me, I am all for enjoying God's creation. He didn't make it with such variety that he doesn't want us to enjoy it. Amen. But it is not God. Right. See, in Caesarea Philippi, the main deity that was worshipped was the god Pan. Pan was the half-goat, half-man person you see in so many movies. Chronicles of Narnia with the flute, and he sings the girl to sleep in the beginning. Not a good guy, actually. They try and spin it in the end. He is the one known to preside over the wilderness, a place where people would go and worship the God of the wilderness. And they're sitting there by this stream, under a tree or on a rock, in a place in which Pan is worshipped in the most terrible ways imaginable. He says, who do you say that I am? Peter says, I get it. Don't you think you would have got it walking on water? He gets it now. And really, who cares when you got it as long as you get it? Amen. Doesn't matter. Verse 18, Jesus now begins to build on this revelation. I say that you are Peter. Remember, he changed his name. And he says, on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Now, in the original language, right, there are actually two different words for rock being used. I would have told you some funny joke, like two words for rock can be hard to understand, but we won't go there. He says Peter, which is awesome. The word Petros and the word Petra. They are different. Now, hang on one moment. This is really fun and very sweet. Jesus uses for Peter, Petros, a piece of a stone or a very small rock or pebble. He says, Peter, you're solid, but you're small. It can also mean a piece that is broken off of a larger rock. And this is where I go, man, Jesus was so sweet. Peter, you're good. You're solid. This is going to go really great eventually. And you're just a piece, a chip off the old block. This is going to be wonderful, Peter. But he changes his terminology when he says, on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. That word doesn't mean a little chip off the old block. He's not saying, Peter, you're so solid, man, you're the foundation. There is no foundation that can be laid except which has already been laid, which is Jesus Christ. So then what's he saying? The foundation, the rock that would be built on, is the revelation that Jesus is God, that he came to die in our place and rose again from the dead. This revelation that Peter just had that was not man-made or taught in a classroom, what was unique between him and God alone, he said that is what I'm going to build the church on. Never leave the gospel. Never get tired of hearing the gospel. Don't grow weary in sharing the gospel. It's all we have, and it's all we need. It's everything. It's the beginning and the end. Jesus is all of it. He was and still is to come. It's awesome. On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Now this is fun. Remember where they are? They're in Caesarea Philippi. They're away from what's normal. They're in this place of great pagan worship. An awesome temple had been built to honor Augustus Caesar. So either there's this great adoration of government, there's all these niches in this massive cliff to a variety of gods. But it was known as the gates of Hades, was this massive cave where the spring would boil up. All this water would come out of this cave. And interestingly enough, you would see it churning up. You still can. We've been there. You can see it. The water's stirring up in this massive dark cave, and it doesn't go anywhere. It boils up, and then it goes underneath your feet where you're standing, this big, long, rocky walkway, and it comes out a stream about 100 feet behind you and begins to feed into the Jordan River. This is the gates of Hades. Why would Jesus say, not even that place right there, that little cave with the water would prevail against my church? Because the way you worship Pan is by taking your living sacrifice, throwing it into this spring that would eventually be sucked down into the water, drug under that stony walkway, and come out the other side. If Pan was happy with you, then nothing would really come out. It'd be rather clean on the other side. If Pan was angry or vengeful, it would become bloody and the waters would turn red on the other side of the walkway. What were their sacrifices? Many things, including children. It was the worst evil you could possibly imagine. So when he says, not even the gates of Hades, you can substitute that no matter what man-made or demonically influenced thing ever comes upon this planet, it will never overcome the reality that I am the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the great I am. He's it. A lot of things have come upon us in our lifetime. Some things we share and have in common. Some are very unique to who you are. But they should not cause you to be unsure. They will never come against or change the hope and security we have in Christ. On one hand, today's sort of the first day together, right? Calvary Chapel Star, like, yes! On the other hand, and honestly my favorite, we are joining in with what God's been doing for over 2,000 years, calling his people together, building the church in a way that not even the gates of Hades can prevail against it. Now, this is what's kind of neat. When he says my church, not a church, my church. Don't ever think the church belongs to anybody. It is his. Amen. It's his. Even the power and authority God gives to mankind is still his. I don't know, maybe it's too macho or whatever, but when Jesus is talking with Pontius Pilate and they're sitting there and Jesus won't respond and he says, you won't respond to me? Don't you know that I have the power to crucify you and to set you free? And Jesus responds to that. He says, no, Mr. Pilate, sir. The only authority you have is from my Father in heaven. Then he tell Peter, put your sword away, it's all right. If I wanted to, I could call down legions of angels at my defense. It's everything. It's his church, and he will build it. I think it's interesting. Coming here, a lot of people, I got a lot of mixed reviews coming here, Idaho. Mostly very positive. Some, there's a lot of religious strongholds there. Uh-huh. Like, is that supposed to detour the gospel? I don't think so. I mean, if God told Joshua back in the Old Testament, wherever you go and the sole of your foot treads is yours, go take it. Amen. Look, I'm not here to start some land battle. But when we come in the power and authority, not of us, but of our Father in heaven, we don't need to tiptoe around. Not even the gates of Hades can prevail against it. I don't care what strongholds may be here for now. The gospel has a way of getting into all the nooks and crannies and seeing lost people saved. That's what it's about. And so, there is this question posed, there is a response made, and then there is a revelation that is had, and lastly, a realization. I would assume that today, everyone in this room, or at least the vast majority, knows the Lord as their Savior. You've had that moment of revelation. We could all tell our own story, our testimony of how the Lord found us. I once was lost, but now am found. And it would have your own personal flavor to it, as it should be. But any revelation of Jesus needs to be followed by a realization of the life he's called us to live. I will give you the keys of the kingdom, he says. And whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And I don't know about you, but this passage makes me scratch my head just a little bit. Because it's tempting to think that God's saying, like, you walk around and you're the boss now. But I know better, and I think you know better. We're not the boss. God's the boss. So then what is this whole thing about? What's it talking about? Well, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. One means we're not in heaven yet. It's the keys to the kingdom of heaven. It doesn't mean that you have authority, but you've been granted access to it and must be attentive with it. We can boldly enter the throne room of grace to find mercy in time of need. I mean, that's awesome. And God says, I know what you have need of before you even ask, so ask. I pray your prayers are much grander than the mortgage or the dental bill or whatever it may be, though you can pray whatever you need to pray. But when you need hope, he'll give hope. When you need strength, he'll give strength. When you need the power to forgive because you can't do it on your own, God will give you the ability to forgive the most unforgivable people. He will if we ask. He's granted us access to the throne room of heaven that we would find mercy in time of need. And also, though, this call that we must be attentive with it. If anyone's ever let you borrow something nicer than you could ever afford, I remember someone letting me drive their car. Oh my, big old nice, wonderful sports Ferrari. No, just kidding. It's not a Ferrari. It felt like a Ferrari. But a sports car, convertible, and he's like, hey, take it out. I'm like, no way. I was 17, and he's like, yeah, have fun, just don't wreck it. I'm like, okay. And isn't there, whether you're house sitting someone's mansion, you're driving their super nice car, whatever it may be, isn't there this extreme joy and excitement followed by a terrifying reverence and desire to be really careful? God says, hey, I want you to be full of joy. He does. 1 John says, I have written these things that your joy may be full. It's awesome. But also to walk with extreme reverence. It's not ours. We are simply stewards of the things that God has given to us. The call to live life differently than the world lives. This is the realization after the revelation. If you are a child of God, we are to live as children of God, not of the world. Our businesses should run differently. Our finances should be managed differently. Our kids should be raised differently. Our marriages should be attended to differently. Our thoughts and emotions should be handled differently. Why? Are you of here? Or is your citizenship in heaven? My citizenship's in heaven. Great. Live that way. He says, I'm giving you access. I've adopted you into my family. Ask what you have need of, and I will give it to you. But be attentive to it. Our kids need guidance now more than ever. Whether we like it or not, we don't get to yield to the current pressures of culture at all. When a kid comes to you with confusion in their hearts and their minds, God has put you in their life to give them clear and straight truth. Jesus was full of grace and truth. Don't be the hammer. We don't have to pound it into them. They're not a horseshoe that needs to be forged from the furnace. But we don't coddle to the pressures of culture either. Hey, I think, well, guess what, bud? You're wrong. And they can cry and kick and scream, and if you hold the line, they will come thankful later. If you take the thankful now, you will cry and kick and scream later. It's true. It's true. We are of a different kingdom. We are to live with a different character because we have a different outcome. Jesus said, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And this is the part that trips me up. Like, what does that mean? Well, it finally makes sense. To bind something means to tie it up. The way you would take a horse and tie it to a hitching post. It has all the ability to run and jump and enjoy its life, but now it is stuck. Here it is. And if you were to pull that rope and loose the colt, away it could go. And God's telling us in the same way, if you've ever learned Spanish, I remember Spanish 1 confusing me out of my mind because some things are said backwards in other languages. Like instead of the car is red, red is the car. Why? I don't know. But remember, the Bible was not written in English, and so as it's saying, whatever is bound or tied up is the same thing as in heaven, or whatever is loosed here on earth is loosed in heaven. What it is saying is whatever in heaven is forbidden and bound up and put on restriction should be forbidden and bound up and restricted in your life on earth. But make sure people get the whole gospel, because he also says whatever is loosed and you're free to do and run wild and go crazy, you're loose and free on earth. Do that. Go for it. But don't confuse the two. Whatever is free in heaven is free now. Live it, love it, enjoy it. But the things that God says no to in heaven, he says no to now. Amen. Ask Adam and Eve. You got the whole place, just not that part. Okay. Right? He doesn't bind up a lot. And the things he binds up are for our own good. Just to reiterate the point, Dr. Kenneth S. Wust says, and whenever he states it, whatever you bind on earth or what is forbidden to be done should have already been bound up in heaven. And whatever you loose on earth or permit to be done shall have already been loosed or permitted in heaven. This goes along with the prayer Jesus taught us to pray, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If I walk into your home, does it feel like heaven? If you walk into mine, does it? If I were to watch you at your workplace, would it seem like a way that Jesus would have conducted business, or the way the world does? We'll wrap this up, and we will end together in worship in a moment. But one thing that's interesting, he says, who do they say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they give all their answers. John the Baptist, Elijah. Realize Peter's answer was different than the world's. And we're supposed to love our neighbor, true, but that doesn't mean we're supposed to coddle and agree with everything they believe. There will be a natural separation. What fellowship does light have with darkness? Jesus asked the question. And so we stand strong. Followers of Jesus will not always agree with the ways of the world. In fact, I'm quite confident we'll never agree with the ways of the world. Second, we should not be afraid or intimidated by anything. Not even the gates of Hades will prevail. No matter what they are doing down there. Peter, you see that? Yeah, I see that. They just threw a little baby into that thing and they got sucked down and the blood came out. This is horrible. What kind of demon worship is this? He says, don't worry about it. I'm the judge. I will handle this. And make note, nothing will ever come against what I am about to do. Be confident in the Lord. Be strong in the Lord. There was the revelation of who Jesus was and the realization of the life they were to live. Isn't it awesome? Peter's asked. Everyone starts leaving. Everyone starts leaving. Jesus, you're too hard to follow. It's wild to think. Jesus is on the side of a mountain one day talking to a mass of people. And he begins to say some things and everyone leaves because it was just too hard. And he looks at his disciples and says, are you guys leaving too? You're free to go. And Peter, chip off the old block, says, Lord, to whom shall we go? For you alone have the words of eternal life. As wonderful as it is to see everyone here today, I pray we get to see all of you in heaven. That's the end goal. That's why Jesus came. The worship team can come on up. We're going to close in a song. And two things I just want to make as clear as I can. That as we close in worship, right, it's not just the way to end it. He is worthy of our praise. He is worthy of our adoration. We'll get to announcements at the end of the song. But that we would give him this, worship him as the Son of God, the Savior. The second thing, simply put, why did he come? If you know about Jesus, but you don't know him, your life is empty of hope or joy. It doesn't have to be. I'm not saying life's going to get easier, but eternity will definitely get better. You know, I know, our works will never do our bad deeds. They'll never outdo it. You can't break the law and then give enough kids ice cream and make the judge happy. You broke the law. I'm glad you're being nice now, but your judgment's still coming. How good you become is completely irrelevant to the salvation you need. And so Jesus came to satisfy the perfect, holy expectations that God has. And it's wild, that big Bible word propitiation, it means to trade places. That Jesus would be the perfect sacrifice, and that God would look and say, I will accept that. And Jesus says, I'm willing to take your rap sheet and put my name across the front of it. And I'll scribble out my name. There's nothing in it. It's an empty folder, innocent. And I'll write your name across the top. And when you get to heaven, you just turn that in, and it'll say Jesus across the top. And my Father will look at you as if you're me, and you are good to go. And if that weren't enough, you will be filled with the same Spirit that raised me from the dead, and I will walk with you all the way into my kingdom. But God's such a gentleman, he'll never force it. He'll invite you every day till the day you die. And I don't know the math, but do 365 times 80 years old. That's a lot of opportunities to receive Jesus. And when we stand before him, we'll have no excuses, only plenty of opportunities missed. And so today, the Bible simply says, if you believe that Jesus Christ is God, that he died on the cross for your sins, and that God raised him from the dead, in that moment you are saved. Yeah, but, there's all kinds of things to figure out. But you won't have to figure out eternity. That part's done. And he will lead you all the way there. So we'll pray. We're going to worship because we have a God worthy of our worship. We'll share some things with you afterwards. Today, if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, it's a decision and a prayer. You make a decision with your mind, and if you pray from your heart because it's true, he will receive you and forgive you. God, we love you. Thank you for taking these private conversations you had with the disciples and putting it into your word for us to learn from. And God, we ask in the same way that you instructed them, okay, now go live the things you have learned. Lord, help us. Be our guide, be our strength, be our hope, be our joy, be our foundation. Lord, we want to worship you in Jesus' name.